Have you ever noticed how a single thought can completely change the way your day feels? Maybe it's that tiny worry you woke up with, and suddenly your whole world becomes heavy. Or that one harsh comment someone made, and for the rest of the day, your mind keeps replaying it like a song you never asked to listen to. But here's the strange part. The moment you shift just one thought, the world around you seems to shift with it. Under the Bodhi tree, more than 2,500 years ago, the Buddha realized a truth so simple yet so powerful that it still echoes today. What we think, we become. Not because life magically rearranges itself for us, but because our mind does. And when the mind becomes steady, truly steady, even the storms of life start losing their power. But let me paint you a picture. Imagine sitting under a giant Bodhi tree at dawn. The world is quiet. Your worries don't disappear, but suddenly they feel lighter. You can see them clearly, without panic, without clinging. And in that stillness, you understand something we often forget. Peace doesn't come from controlling the world. It comes from understanding yourself. That moment of clarity is what gave birth to the 10 powerful lessons we're about to explore. And the beauty is, they aren't distant teachings meant for monks living in mountains. They're tools for the ordinary, modern, messy life you and I live every single day. Because the truth is, life today is louder than ever. Notifications, deadlines, expectations, people pulling us in every direction. It's a constant storm. And sometimes it feels as if being calm is a luxury only other people have time for. But Buddhist wisdom says otherwise. You don't need a perfect life to have peace. You just need a trained mind. And these 10 lessons? They aren't just ancient sayings carved on temple walls. They're practical, usable, and deeply transformative. The kind of insights that quietly shift how you breathe, how you respond, how you carry yourself through difficult days. As we walk through them, you'll notice something. Each one is simple, but not easy. Profound, but incredibly human. And if you let them, they will change the way you experience your life. Not in a dramatic, overnight transformation, but in small, steady moments of clarity that add up. But before we dive in, let me leave you with one thought. A thought that might stay with you for the rest of this video. If a thought can create suffering, it can also create freedom. So the real question is, what have your thoughts been creating lately? And more importantly, what could your life look like if you learned to master them instead of letting them master you? Because in just a moment, we're going to open the door to the first powerful Buddhist lesson. One that reveals why peace isn't something you find outside, but something you uncover within. Stay with me. This first lesson might just shift the way you see your entire life. Lesson 1. Mastering your mind. If there's one battle every human faces, it's the battle inside their own mind. And to bring this lesson to life, let me introduce you to someone you might recognize in yourself. His name is Daniel. On the outside, he looked put together. Good job, good family, always smiling at the right moments. But inside, his thoughts were like wild horses, running in every direction. One moment he was replaying old mistakes. The next he was imagining problems that hadn't even happened. His mind never rested, not even at night. Maybe you've felt that too. That feeling of lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, and your brain whispers, "Remember that embarrassing thing you said 5 years ago?" And suddenly, you're wide awake again. The Buddha once said, "The greatest victory is not conquering 1,000 armies, but conquering yourself." And Daniel had never won that battle, because he didn't even know it was a battle he could win. For years, he thought his thoughts controlled him. And honestly, many of us believe the same. We think we are our worries, our fears, our stress. But one evening, during a moment of complete exhaustion, something shifted. Daniel came across a simple teaching from the Buddha. Observe the mind, do not obey it. It sounded almost too simple, but out of desperation, he tried it. The next morning, instead of grabbing his phone immediately like he always did, he sat still for just 2 minutes. 2 minutes felt like eternity. His mind kept screaming, "You're wasting time. You have emails to answer. This is pointless." But he stayed. And for the first time in years, he noticed something. A tiny space. A pause between one thought and the next. That pause changed everything. Because inside that space, he realized something profound. He didn't have to believe every story his mind told him. He didn't have to be dragged by every emotion. He didn't have to drown in every wave of fear. He could simply watch. That's where real mastery begins, not by force, not by fighting yourself, but by seeing. By noticing the thought that says, "I'm not enough," and asking, "Is this true?" By catching the moment your anxiety rises and saying, "I see you, and I'm still here." By creating just enough space to breathe before reacting. Through mindfulness and meditation, Daniel's inner world slowly transformed. Not magically, not instantly, but consistently. He still had stressful days. He still felt fear. He still made mistakes. But he was no longer chained to his reactions. Think of it like sitting on the side of a river. Your thoughts flow by like water. Some are calm, some are storms, some are memories, drifting in like fallen leaves. Mastering your mind doesn't mean stopping the river. It means learning to sit on the bank without falling in. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you truly noticed your thoughts? Not judged them, not chased them, just noticed. Because the moment you do, you begin the greatest victory of your life. The victory of returning home to yourself. The victory of becoming the master of your mind instead of its prisoner. And if Daniel could find peace in the middle of chaos, so can you. All it takes is one quiet moment, repeated until it becomes strength. Now, in the next lesson, we're going deeper into the quiet truth behind suffering and how understanding it can completely free the way you live. Stay with me. This next insight will change the way you see every challenge in your life. Lesson 2. Protecting your time. If there's one thing people lose without realizing it, it's time. Not money. Not energy. Time. And no one understood this more painfully than Sarah. She was the kind of person everyone relied on, the coworker who always stayed late, the friend who always said yes, the family member who dropped everything whenever someone needed help. On the outside, she seemed generous, dependable, strong. But inside, she was exhausted. She felt like her life didn't belong to her anymore, like she was living on deadlines created by other people. Maybe you've been there too, saying yes, even when something inside you is whispering, "Please, not this." One evening, Sarah read a line from the Buddha. "The problem is you think you have time." At first it sounded poetic, but the more she sat with it, the more it felt like a quiet shock to the heart. Because the truth hit her. She wasn't losing time in big, dramatic ways. She was losing it in tiny, invisible ways. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. An hour spent pleasing someone she didn't even like. Another afternoon spent worrying about something that didn't matter. And that's how time slips through our fingers. Not in storms, but in droplets. Her real conflict wasn't that she was busy. Her real conflict was that she was busy with things that didn't nourish her soul. One day, after yet another chaotic morning, Sarah stopped, closed her eyes, and asked herself a question she had never asked before. If my time is the most precious thing I own, why am I giving it away so carelessly? That question changed everything. She began with something simple. She said no, not out of anger, not to rebel, but because she finally understood that every yes to something meaningless was a no to her own life. And of course, saying no didn't feel natural at first. She felt guilty. She worried people would think she'd changed. She worried they'd be disappointed. But here's the surprising thing. The moment she protected her time, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: lightness, space, air. Suddenly, she had time to breathe, time to think, time to be present with the people she actually loved, time to work on things that mattered to her future, not just things that demanded her attention in the moment. Buddhist wisdom teaches that time is not just minutes on a clock, it's your life force, your awareness, your presence in this world. Losing time is losing pieces of yourself. And once it's gone, it never returns. So let me ask you something gently. Where is your time going? Into obligations that drain you? Into habits that numb you? Into people who take but never give? Into tasks that keep you busy but not fulfilled? Protecting your time doesn't mean becoming selfish. It means becoming awake. It means choosing what aligns with your purpose instead of what steals your peace. It means realizing that every hour you spend is an hour you trade for a moment of your life, a moment you will never get back. When Sarah learned that, she began designing her life with intention, one meaningful commitment at a time, one boundary at a time, one conscious moment at a time. And maybe this is the moment you begin doing the same, because the Buddha's reminder isn't a warning. It's an invitation to live fully, to choose wisely, and to honor the quiet truth that your time is the rarest thing you own. In the next lesson, we'll explore why suffering happens and how understanding it can free your heart in ways you may not expect. Stay with me, the next insight goes even deeper. Lesson 3. Choosing your influences wisely. There's a quiet truth people rarely pause to consider. You become the people you spend time with. Not instantly, not dramatically, but slowly, silently, like a mirror absorbing the reflections around it. And no one understood this better than Michael. Michael wasn't a bad person. He wasn't unmotivated or lazy. He simply didn't realize that his life was being shaped, day by day, by the circle he kept. His friends weren't terrible people, but they were comfortable staying exactly where they were, complaining more than creating, criticizing more than growing, laughing at dreams instead of chasing them. And because he spent so much time with them, he began mirroring the same thinking without even noticing. Have you ever experienced that? Where you start picking up someone else's fears, someone else's doubts, even someone else's way of seeing the world? One day, after a long night of conversations that left him feeling drained rather than inspired, Michael came across a teaching that stopped him in his tracks. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. He read it again, and suddenly it began to sting not out of shame, but out of clarity. Because if he were honest, the 5 people closest to him weren't lifting him higher. They were pulling him sideways, keeping him comfortable, keeping him small. His real conflict wasn't them. It was the quiet voice inside whispering, "You were meant for more, but you're surrounding yourself with less." This wasn't about judgment. It was about influence, the invisible force that shapes our beliefs without asking for permission. He realized something powerful. Your environment is stronger than your willpower. Even the most disciplined mind can be dragged down by constant negativity, cynicism, or small thinking. So Michael made a choice that scared him, a choice that felt like ripping up the foundation of his life. He stepped back, not abruptly, not harshly, but intentionally. He began spending more time alone, more time reading what expanded his mind, more time with people who were striving, learning, growing, people who weren't perfect, but were awake, people who didn't mock ambition, but nurtured it, people whose presence made him want to become the best version of himself. Slowly, he noticed the shift. Conversations became lighter. Ideas became clearer. Dreams became realistic again. He started believing in possibilities he had once buried. Because here's the truth. When you surround yourself with people who see your potential, you start seeing it too. And on the flip side, when you stay around people who only see limitations, those limitations become your ceiling. Let me ask you something softly, not critically. Who are your 5? Do they pull you forward or pull you down? Do they bring peace or chaos? Do they feed your courage or your doubt? Protecting your environment is an act of compassion for yourself. It doesn't mean cutting people off with anger. It simply means choosing what nourishes your spirit rather than what drains it. Buddhist wisdom teaches that your mind is like a garden. Your relationships are the seeds. What you plant grows. So, choose carefully. Because your future self is built from the influences you allow today. Michael didn't change overnight. But the moment he chose wiser influences, his life took a different direction. One filled with more clarity, more purpose, and more peace. And maybe this is the moment you start choosing differently too. In the next lesson, we explore a truth even deeper. Why attachment creates suffering, and how letting go frees your heart in ways you might not expect. Stay with me. The next lesson will shift something inside you. Lesson 4. Saying yes to what matters. Sometimes, the hardest word to say isn't no. It's yes. A true yes. A wholehearted yes, the kind that aligns with your soul. And this is where Emily's story begins. Emily was always busy, always doing something, always running from one commitment to another. On paper, it looked like she had everything together. A stable job, a full calendar, people who wanted her time. But inside, she felt strangely hollow, like she was living a life filled with activities, yet empty of meaning. Her conflict wasn't a lack of effort. It was a lack of direction. She said yes to everything except the things that actually mattered to her. One evening, while scrolling through old photos, she found one of herself as a teenager painting under a big oak tree. There was color on her hands, sunlight on her face, joy in her eyes. And in that moment, she whispered, almost surprised, "Where did that version of me go?" Buddhism teaches that when we forget our core values, we drift quietly, slowly, like a ship without an anchor, and that drift creates suffering. Emily realized she had been drifting for years. So, she asked herself a question she had avoided for a long time. What truly matters to me? Not what looks good. Not what others expect. Not what society praises. But what her heart felt drawn to. She wrote down 5 things. Family, her creative passion, contribution, inner peace, and her spiritual path. Then came the difficult part, living in alignment with those values. Because the moment you say yes to what matters, you must say no to what doesn't. And that's where the real tension appeared. She had to decline invitations that once made her feel included. She had to choose slow, meaningful time with her family instead of rushing around to impress acquaintances. She had to face the fear of pursuing her passion, the fear of not being good enough, not being ready, not being accepted. But something extraordinary happened. The more she said yes to her values, the quieter her anxiety became, the clearer her days felt, the lighter she walked. She wasn't just managing her life anymore. She was shaping it with intention, attention, and presence. Buddhist wisdom says that when you act from your core values, you stop chasing happiness and start generating it. Because alignment brings peace. Let me ask you gently, what are the things that you know deep down truly matter to you? Are you giving them your time, your energy, your heart, or have they been waiting quietly in the background, hoping you'll notice them again? The truth is, saying yes to what matters isn't a grand gesture. It's a series of small, conscious choices day after day that slowly transform the direction of your life. Emily didn't quit her job or run away to a monastery. She simply created space for what nourished her. Evenings with her family without distractions. 1 hour a day for art. A weekly moment of silence for her spiritual practice. Acts of kindness that reminded her she was part of something bigger. These tiny yeses built a life that finally felt like hers. And maybe this is your moment too. Your moment to pause, breathe, and ask yourself what deserves your wholehearted yes. Because when your yes comes from your values, it doesn't drain you. It restores you. It guides you. It becomes the compass that keeps your life on its true path. In the next lesson, we go deeper into letting go and why releasing the unnecessary makes room for the life you were meant to live. Stay with me, the journey gets even more meaningful from here. Lesson 5. Seeking Challenges. There's a moment in everyone's life when comfort becomes dangerously quiet. So quiet that you don't even notice how much it's holding you back. I want to tell you a short story about Daniel, someone just like many of us. Daniel had a stable job, a predictable routine, and a life that looked fine from the outside. But inside, he felt heavy. Not because something was wrong, but because nothing ever truly challenged him. One day, he heard a Buddhist monk say, "Comfort is the sweet prison you enter willingly." That sentence hit him like a bell ringing in an empty hall. So he asked himself, and I want you to ask this too, when was the last time I did something that scared me, in a good way? That question changed everything for him. You see, growth never arrives wrapped in soft blankets. It comes disguised as difficulty, uncertainty, and moments that stretch you beyond the familiar. But here's the deeper truth the monk shared. Challenges aren't obstacles, they are invitations. Invitations to meet the stronger version of yourself. When Daniel decided to accept those invitations, small at first, his whole inner world shifted. He joined a public speaking group, even though his hands shook just thinking about it. He started running in the mornings, even when the bed pulled him back like gravity. He learned a new skill that made him feel like a beginner again, uncomfortable, unsure, humbled. But that discomfort, it became his greatest teacher. Maybe you felt this too, that fear at the edge of something new. That hesitation before accepting a challenge you know could change you. In Buddhist wisdom, challenges are not punishments, they are mirrors. They reflect where you cling, where you doubt, where you underestimate your own strength. And every time you step toward them instead of away, that mirror cracks a little, revealing the truth beneath. You are far more capable than your comfort zone ever allowed you to see. Let me ask you this. What if the things you call difficult are actually the gateways to the life you want? What if the very discomfort you avoid is the exact fire that would forge your confidence, your resilience, your purpose? Daniel didn't transform overnight. Some days he failed. Some days he didn't show up. But each time he tried again, something inside him expanded a quiet courage, a deeper trust. And that's the beauty of seeking challenges. You don't do it to prove anything to the world. You do it to meet the parts of yourself you haven't discovered yet. Because somewhere inside you, there is a strength waiting to be awakened, a voice waiting to speak, a courage waiting to rise. And you will never meet those parts by staying where it's comfortable. So today, choose one challenge, just one, that nudges you toward a fuller version of yourself. It doesn't have to be dramatic, just meaningful. Something that stretches you, even a little. Say to yourself, "This discomfort is not my enemy, it is my teacher." And then step forward. Because every step into the unknown is a step toward your own inner awakening. Lesson 6. Learning from failure. Most people treat failure like a full stop, a dead end, a sign that something is wrong with them. But in Buddhist wisdom, failure is not a wall, it's a teacher. A quiet, patient teacher who waits for you to stop running and finally listen. Let me tell you about Maya. Maya was ambitious, hardworking, the kind of person who always gave her best. But when she tried to start her first business, it collapsed within months. She lost money, confidence, and the belief that she was good enough. On the outside, she kept moving, but inside, she carried a shame that felt heavier than the failure itself. One evening, overwhelmed, she visited a small meditation center. During the talk, the monk said something that changed the way she saw everything. When you fail, don't ask, "Why did this happen to me?" Ask instead, "What is this teaching me?" That one question cracked open a new door. Because failure is information. It's feedback. It's data about where you are, what you need, and who you're becoming. Maya realized she didn't fail because she was incapable. She failed because she didn't yet understand the game she was trying to play. She didn't know how to manage money. She didn't know how to build a team. She didn't know how to pace herself. That wasn't a flaw. It was simply missing information. And the moment she saw failure as data, not identity, something inside her softened. She could breathe again. Let me pause here and ask you a question. What is the biggest failure you still carry? And what if it wasn't a punishment, but a message you haven't decoded yet? Failure is one of the few experiences that forces us to drop the masks we wear. The mask of pride. The mask of certainty. The mask of, "I have everything under control." When those masks fall, what remains is truth. Raw, uncomfortable, but real. And real is where growth finally happens. Maya didn't bounce back instantly. No one does. But she started learning, slowly, steadily. She took classes, sought mentors, asked questions she used to feel embarrassed to ask. And here's the beautiful part. When she tried again, she didn't repeat her past mistakes because she had already harvested the lesson. That's the hidden gift of failure. When you learn from it, you don't return to where you were. You rise with new wisdom. And wisdom changes the game. Think about a time you fell emotionally, financially, spiritually. At that moment, it felt like the end. But looking back, can you see how that moment shaped you? How it pushed you into a new path, new strength, new humility? In Buddhist teachings, they say, a fall is not a fall if you rise a wiser person. So, instead of avoiding failure, get curious about it. Sit with it. Ask it questions. Treat it like a mentor who speaks in a language you're just beginning to understand. And when you look closely, you'll realize failure doesn't break you. It reveals you. It refines you. It turns your confusion into clarity, your fear into resilience, your doubt into direction. So the next time you stumble, and you will, because you're human, don't rush to erase the moment. Let it teach you. Let it guide you. Let it carve you into someone stronger, softer, and infinitely wiser. Because failure isn't the end of your story. Sometimes It's the chapter that finally makes everything make sense. Lesson 7. Practicing daily mindfulness. Most of us live in the future or the past. We scroll through old messages, replay conversations, and worry about what might happen tomorrow. And while we do that, life slips right through our fingers. Let me tell you about Alex. Alex is a successful marketing manager, always chasing the next big deal, the next promotion, the next win. On paper, he had it all. But inside, he felt like he was running on a treadmill that never stopped. The moment he tried to slow down, anxiety hit like a storm. The past, the future, regrets, and fears all rushed in. One day, exhausted and on the verge of burnout, Alex joined a mindfulness workshop. The instructor handed him a simple instruction. Just breathe. Notice what's around you. Don't judge. Don't fix. Just be. That sounded ridiculously simple, almost silly. But Alex tried. He started noticing things he had completely overlooked. The hum of the office AC, the smell of fresh coffee, the warmth of sunlight on his skin. He realized that these ordinary moments were full of life, but he had been too busy thinking about everything else to notice. Mindfulness isn't about escaping reality. It's about fully experiencing it. Think about your own morning routine. How often do you rush through it? Shower, breakfast, coffee, commute, all on autopilot. Now imagine if, for one day, you actually paid attention to each sip of coffee, felt the warmth of the cup, smelled the aroma, tasted it fully. That's mindfulness. It's tiny, but it's transformative. By practicing daily mindfulness, Alex discovered something extraordinary. He could observe his thoughts without getting swept away by them. He could notice tension in his body and release it. He could respond to challenges instead of reacting automatically. And here's the subtle magic. Life didn't become perfect, but it became more alive. Every moment carried more clarity, more gratitude, more depth. Mindfulness also reveals something profound: the impermanence of everything. The fight, the frustration, the stress, they are temporary. When you sit quietly, breathing, and just noticing, you start to see that your mind isn't reality. It's a lens, a story maker, and sometimes a trickster. Alex began practicing for just 10 minutes each morning, sometimes more, sometimes less. And slowly, the anxiety loosened its grip. He could meet a stressful email with calm. He could talk to his kids without being distracted by 1,000 what-ifs. He could actually live in the moment. Here's a question for you. If you could reclaim just 5 minutes each hour to be fully present, how would it change your day? Your relationships? Your sense of peace? Mindfulness doesn't ask for perfection. It doesn't demand hours of meditation or retreat. It asks for presence, even if it's only in small, consistent doses. Because the truth is, the only thing you ever truly have is this moment. The past is gone. The future hasn't arrived. But this right here, right now, is real. And when you start living in that reality, everything shifts. Stress loses its power. Joy becomes sharper. Life itself feels a little more like a gift. So, start small. Breathe. Notice. Listen. Touch. And remember, every moment you spend fully awake is a moment you've truly lived. Because mindfulness isn't about controlling life. It's about being fully alive within it. Lesson 8. Cultivating daily gratitude. Gratitude sounds simple, doesn't it? Just saying thank you or noticing the good things in life. But here's the catch. Most of us overlook it. We focus on what's missing, what's wrong, what's unfair, and then we wonder why life feels heavy, why joy feels fleeting. Take Sarah, for example. She was a nurse working long shifts in a busy hospital. Every day, she faced exhaustion, chaos, and heartbreak. Some days, she left work thinking, I did so much, yet it's never enough. Her mind was full of complaints, frustration, and why me? One evening, after a particularly grueling shift, a colleague suggested something unusual. Try writing down 3 things you're grateful for each day. Doesn't have to be big. Tiny things count too. Sarah was skeptical. Tiny things? How could noticing that she had a warm cup of tea or a smiling patient change anything? But she tried. At first, it felt awkward. She wrote, a hot shower, my cat curled up on the couch, a text from my mom. Then she noticed something remarkable. Even on her worst days, gratitude shifted her focus. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the chaos, she started seeing moments of light. A patient's laughter, a colleague's supportive word, a brief pause to breathe suddenly. Her world didn't feel so heavy. Gratitude is not about denying difficulty. It's about holding both sides, the challenges and the blessings, and recognizing that both are teachers. The struggles teach resilience. The joys teach presence. There's a story in Buddhism that illustrates this perfectly. A monk once said, when the rain falls, we don't curse the storm. We open our hands and feel the drops. Every drop is a lesson, every moment a gift. Gratitude turns life's ordinary moments into extraordinary experiences. It rewires our minds to notice abundance rather than lack. It transforms having enough into being enough. Here's a simple experiment. Before bed tonight, write down 3 things you're grateful for. Not, I'm grateful for money, unless it really sparks joy. Maybe it's the warmth of sunlight on your face, the sound of your favorite song, or even the way your dog greets you after work. Do this every day. Over time, your perspective begins to shift. Stress loses some of its weight. Challenges feel more like lessons than punishments. Even setbacks become opportunities to appreciate growth, learning, and perseverance. Here's another layer. Gratitude strengthens relationships. When you express genuine thanks to someone, a friend, a partner, a coworker, it deepens connection. It reminds both of you that you're seen, valued, and part of a shared journey. Sarah's life didn't magically become perfect. The hospital was still demanding. Her shifts were still long, but gratitude became a lens through which she could experience life differently. It gave her a sense of inner wealth that no paycheck, no achievement, no accolade could ever match. And here's the real magic. Gratitude compounds. One thankful thought leads to another. One moment of appreciation invites another. Soon, your life begins to feel fuller, lighter, and more meaningful. So, here's the question for you. What if, today, you focused not on what's missing, but on what's already here? On the lessons in your struggles, the warmth in your relationships, the simple pleasures you've been overlooking? Because when you cultivate daily gratitude, you're not just noticing life, you're transforming it. One thankful breath, one mindful moment at a time. And that, my friend, is the path to a life that feels truly rich. Lesson 9. Acceptance. Have you ever noticed how much of our suffering comes not from what happens to us, but from how we fight it? Take Michael, for instance. He lost his job unexpectedly. At first, anger consumed him. Why me? This isn't fair, he thought. He argued with reality every single day, replaying scenarios in his head, blaming others, and imagining how things should have gone differently. Every morning felt heavier than the last. Then, one evening, after another sleepless night of worry, Michael tried something different. He remembered a phrase he had once read in a Buddhist text. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. At first, it sounded almost too simple. But he paused and really considered it. The loss of his job, that was the pain. The endless bitterness and frustration that was suffering he chose to carry. So, he took a breath and started practicing acceptance. Not resignation, not giving up, but acknowledging reality exactly as it was. He allowed himself to feel the fear, the sadness, even the anger. And then he let those emotions sit without trying to suppress them or fight them. He saw that resisting reality only made the pain grow. Acceptance, he realized, was like turning a sail into the wind instead of trying to anchor against the storm. The effect was subtle at first, but powerful. Instead of spiraling into panic, he could now think clearly. He began updating his resume, reaching out to contacts, exploring opportunities he had ignored for years. By accepting what had happened, he freed himself from the weight of constant resistance. He could act, he could move forward, without being paralyzed by what should have been. Here's the deeper truth. Life will bring loss, disappointment, and suffering. We can't control all circumstances, but we can control how we respond. Acceptance doesn't mean liking what happens. It doesn't mean being passive. It means seeing reality clearly, embracing it without illusion, and responding with calm wisdom. There's a story in Buddhist tradition about a monk sitting under a tree during a violent storm. He didn't fight the wind or curse the rain. He simply sat, feeling the rain on his skin, letting the storm pass over him. By surrendering to the moment, he remained unbroken. That's what acceptance offers us: resilience. It's a kind of inner armor forged not from avoidance or denial, but from clarity and presence. Think about it. How many of your sleepless nights were spent resisting things you couldn't change? How many arguments, frustrations, or regrets weighed you down unnecessarily? Acceptance is the key to releasing that burden. It allows you to see the path forward. It lets you engage with life fully, even when it's messy, painful, or unpredictable. Michael's life didn't become perfect overnight. The job market was tough. Some days were still hard. But by accepting reality, he could respond effectively rather than react in fear. He could make decisions from a place of strength rather than panic. And here's the gift. Acceptance transforms suffering into clarity. It teaches patience, humility, and courage. It reminds us that pain is natural, but suffering is optional. And once we stop fighting the inevitable, we discover a freedom that no circumstance can take away. So today, ask yourself, what am I resisting right now? What reality am I fighting? That, if accepted, could give me space to breathe, to act, and to grow. Because when you practice true acceptance, storms no longer break you. They move through you, and you move forward, unshaken, resilient, alive. Lesson 10. Living in harmony with core values. Have you ever felt that quiet unrest deep inside, even when everything on the outside seems fine? That's often the voice of misalignment when your actions drift away from your core values. Take Emma's story. She had a successful career, a comfortable apartment, and a social circle that seemed enviable. Yet, she couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness, a subtle tension that crept into her days. She realized that while she was achieving external goals, her choices often conflicted with what truly mattered to her: creativity, authenticity, and meaningful connection. One evening, she sat quietly with a notebook and asked herself a simple but profound question. What do I truly stand for? She listed her values: honesty, compassion, growth, contribution. Then, she traced her daily choices against that list. Suddenly, the pattern was clear. Some decisions, like saying yes to projects that drained her energy, or keeping relationships that didn't nourish her were quietly eroding her inner peace. Emma realized something crucial. Peace doesn't come from success, wealth, or approval. It comes from harmony between your actions and your deepest beliefs. So she began to realign. She learned to say no to things that didn't resonate. She invested time in projects that fueled her creativity and purpose. She nurtured relationships that reflected her values, even if that meant letting go of some that no longer fit. And here's the beauty of this journey. Alignment doesn't make life perfect. Challenges still appear, unexpected storms still hit. But when your choices consistently echo your core beliefs, those challenges no longer shake you at the foundation. You meet difficulties from a place of grounded strength, not inner conflict. Think about the ripple effect. When your actions align with your values, your decisions become clearer. Your relationships become more authentic. Your work becomes more meaningful. Even everyday moments, conversations, routines, gestures carry a quiet depth and satisfaction. There's a Zen saying, "When your actions are one with your heart, you are never lost." Emma discovered that true freedom isn't about doing whatever you want. It's about living intentionally, guided by the compass of your core values. When you live in harmony with your principles, external chaos loses its power to disturb your inner calm. Ask yourself, are your daily choices silently compromising who you are at your core? Are you living a life dictated by others' expectations or your own true principles? Even small misalignments can quietly erode joy, create stress, and drain energy. But small corrections, small conscious choices to honor your values, can compound into a life of clarity, purpose, and inner peace. Emma's transformation wasn't dramatic overnight. It was gradual, deliberate, and sometimes uncomfortable. But each aligned choice built her confidence, strengthened her resilience, and created a quiet joy that no external circumstance could steal. This is the final key, the culmination of everything we've explored. Inner peace is not something we chase in the world. It's cultivated from the inside, born from integrity, authenticity, and living consistently with what we hold most sacred. So today, reflect. Are your actions reflecting your deepest values? Are you living in harmony or silently in conflict with yourself? Because when your life mirrors your heart, something profound happens. You don't just survive. You thrive. You find the kind of peace that no storm can shake, the kind of joy that no circumstance can steal, and the quiet certainty that you are living your life as it was meant to be lived. Lesson 11. Embracing lifelong learning. Imagine waking up one day and realizing that everything you thought you knew isn't enough. It's a sobering moment, isn't it? Meet Daniel. Daniel was in his late 30s, successful by most standards, good job, comfortable life, respected by his peers. Yet, he felt stuck. A quiet frustration lingered. The world was moving fast. People around him were adapting, learning, evolving, and he felt like he was standing still. One evening, he watched a documentary about innovators who changed the world not because they were born geniuses, but because they never stopped learning. Something clicked. Life, Daniel realized, isn't a one-time exam. It's an ongoing school, and curiosity is the tuition you pay to keep growing. So, he made a choice. He started small, reading articles outside his field, listening to podcasts on topics he once thought irrelevant, having conversations with people whose experiences were completely different from his own. At first, it felt uncomfortable. It's not easy to admit, "I don't know this," especially when society praises certainty and expertise. But Daniel began to notice something remarkable. Every new idea, every unfamiliar perspective, sparked creativity. Every challenge he faced, whether in work or personal life, felt more manageable because he had a broader toolkit of knowledge, awareness, and understanding. Here's the paradox. Lifelong learning doesn't just make you smarter, it makes you humbler. It reminds you that the world is infinitely complex and that your growth never truly ends. Think about it. How often do we resist change because it feels uncomfortable or inconvenient? We cling to old routines, familiar thinking, safe patterns. But life doesn't wait for comfort zones. It rewards curiosity, resilience, and the courage to explore the unknown. Daniel's transformation wasn't overnight. It was incremental. A little each day, a book read, a podcast absorbed, a question asked, a conversation truly listened to. And over time, he noticed a shift not just in his career, but in his relationships, his creativity, his confidence, and even his sense of joy. Lifelong learning also teaches a subtle but profound lesson. Failure isn't final. Every mistake, every setback is data, a chance to recalibrate and grow. When you commit to learning every day, setbacks become stepping stones instead of dead ends. Imagine approaching each day like this. What can I discover today? What belief might I challenge? What skill or insight can I add to my life? Even small changes compound. Curiosity becomes a habit. Adaptability becomes a strength. And life transforms from a series of obligations into a continuous adventure. The most successful, fulfilled people across history share one trait. They never stop learning. They are students of life, attentive to what's around them, open to growth, willing to evolve, and unafraid of change. So ask yourself, are you learning today? Are you clinging to old assumptions? Or are you exploring, asking, growing, becoming? Commit to lifelong learning, not because it's a trend or a requirement, but because it's the path to freedom, adaptability, and a life lived fully. When you embrace curiosity, admit what you don't know, and stretch beyond comfort, you open doors you never imagined. Opportunities multiply, wisdom deepens, and each day you become more fully alive. Daniel learned this the hard way, but his life became richer, fuller, and more vibrant because he chose to never stop learning. And here's the thing, it's never too late for you either. Start today. Start small. Stay curious. Keep growing. Because life rewards those who are willing to learn every single day. Lesson 12. Practicing compassion for self and others. Imagine waking up one morning and feeling like nothing you do is ever enough. You rush through your day, constantly criticizing yourself. I should have done more, said more, been better. Sound familiar? This is where compassion comes in, not just for the world around you, but for yourself first. Meet Sarah. Sarah was a high achiever, always helping others, volunteering, giving advice, and fixing problems for everyone she knew. But when it came to herself, she was relentless. She beat herself up over mistakes, obsessing over flaws, and measuring herself against impossible standards. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day, she caught herself thinking, why can't I just get it right? And then, something shifted. She realized she had been treating herself worse than she would ever treat a friend. She started asking, what if I spoke to myself with the same kindness I give to others? Sarah's journey began with small acts. Every morning, she paused for a few minutes to acknowledge herself, not her achievements, not her failures, but herself, as a human being deserving of care. She started saying, I'm doing my best, and that's enough. And when she stumbled, she allowed herself to fail without judgment. Here's the secret. Self-compassion isn't self-indulgence. It's not weakness. It's the foundation for resilience, empathy, and genuine connection. When you cultivate kindness towards yourself, it naturally radiates outward. Sarah noticed she became more patient with colleagues, more understanding with family, and more tolerant with strangers. She listened more, she judged less. She loved more without strings attached. Think about it. How often do we try to love the world while hating ourselves? It doesn't work. Our inner world shapes our outer world. If you carry self-criticism, impatience, or harshness inside, it will spill over. But when you nurture compassion within, every interaction, every challenge, every relationship becomes an opportunity to practice love, not judgment. Compassion also teaches a profound lesson. Imperfection is universal. Everyone is struggling, everyone is learning, everyone is human. By accepting your own pain, limitations, and mistakes, you naturally develop empathy for others' struggles. Sarah started a daily habit, a short reflection in the evening. She asked herself, where was I kind today? Where did I hold myself too harshly? It became a mirror, not of guilt, but of growth. Each day, her heart softened, her anxiety eased, and her connection to others deepened. Imagine approaching life this way, pausing when frustration rises, speaking gently to yourself instead of snapping, offering forgiveness for your missteps, and recognizing your own humanity. Self-compassion transforms life because it shifts the lens through which you see everything. Failures become lessons, challenges become opportunities, and relationships become deeper and more authentic. And here's the magic. When you extend compassion inward first, it becomes limitless outward. You love without expectation. You give without depletion. You connect without fear. Sarah's life didn't suddenly become perfect. She still faced obstacles, stress, and disappointment. But she faced them with a steady heart, a kinder mind, and a spirit capable of unconditional love. Ask yourself, are you your own harshest critic or your own greatest supporter? True compassion begins within. When you treat yourself with gentleness and care, you unlock the power to love the world fully and freely. Start today. Speak kindly to yourself. Notice your own suffering. And then, extend that same love and understanding to everyone you meet. Because real change, real peace begins with compassion for yourself first, and then, inevitably, for the world. Lesson 13. Finding true freedom in non-attachment. Imagine holding on to something so tightly that it starts to hurt. It could be a goal, a relationship, a reputation, or even an idea of who you think you should be. And yet, the harder you hold, the more it controls you. Meet James. James had everything he thought he wanted. A high-paying job, a social image that impressed, and accolades that filled his LinkedIn profile. On the surface, it looked like success, but inside, he felt trapped. Every failure, every criticism, every unexpected change sent waves of anxiety through him. His life was a series of tight fists, grasping for security and certainty that didn't exist. One evening, after missing a promotion he had been working toward for years, James sat alone and asked a simple, terrifying question. What if all this, my title, my accolades, my image, doesn't define me? It was the first time he truly considered letting go. Non-attachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you give up on ambition or stop loving. It means you stop tying your happiness, your peace, and your sense of self to external things that can change, fail, or disappear. James started small. He practiced noticing his thoughts, his cravings, and his fears without identifying with them. When he felt anger at a colleague, or anxiety over a missed opportunity. He observed it. This is a feeling. It will pass. He stopped judging himself for feeling and stopped letting these feelings control his actions. And then, slowly, a remarkable thing happened. He discovered freedom. The promotion no longer defined his worth. A critical comment no longer shattered his peace. Even the idea of who he should be began to dissolve, leaving space for who he truly was. A human being, imperfect, learning, and enough just as he is. Here's the insight. When you release attachment, life doesn't become meaningless. It becomes lighter, richer, and more present. The joy of a success is sweeter because it is appreciated for what it is, not clutched as a lifeline. The pain of failure is softer because it doesn't threaten your identity. Non-attachment also opens the door to deeper connection. James noticed he could be fully present with friends, family, and even strangers without expectations or fear of losing. He could listen without judging, love without needing approval, and give without needing anything in return. Think about your own life. How often do you chase approval, money, or recognition, thinking it will finally set you free? And how often do you feel trapped by that very chase? Non-attachment invites you to step back, breathe, and see life as it truly is, impermanent, unpredictable, and full of opportunities to practice presence, love, and compassion. James's life didn't become perfect overnight. He still faced setbacks, disappointments, and heartbreaks. But he faced them with a calm center, a heart unshaken by the ebb and flow of external circumstances. This is the essence of freedom. It's not in what you hold. It's not in what you achieve. It's in the peace that arises when you stop holding on so tightly. Ask yourself, what are you gripping so tightly that it steals your joy? What parts of your identity, your desires, or your fears are keeping you from truly living? Let them go, even if just a little. Notice the relief, the space, the lightness. This is not giving up. This is waking up. True freedom is waiting. Not in some future moment, not in some achievement. It is here, in this moment, as you breathe, as you release, as you simply are. Non-attachment doesn't make life easier. It makes life alive. It makes life free.